This is a detailed review of the Southwire 12070T, or 12070T. It's basically the highest model of multimeter that Southwire sells. It's digital, obviously, and it has auto ranging, and it is true RMS. And I think this is the only one out of the 15 multimeters that I reviewed for the $50 multimeter shootout that is IP67 rated. So waterproof, dustproof, dropproof, all that good stuff. So it should be a tough little meter, and it's a reputable brand that sells tools for electricians, or I guess anyone in the industrial industry. And so they should be a company you can trust. But that being said, though, as you see, there are probably some similarities to a lot of other multimeters from other brands, and it's because this is a rebranded CEM, which is what I've come to find, which if if you pay really close attention, you'll notice that this looks very similar to some of the X-Tech models, and that's because it is. It's not a rebranded X-Tech, they just use the same OEM that X-Tech does for a lot of their multimeters, so it's not a bad thing, necessarily. Now, the EX series, X-Techs have had some quality control issues, and I'm not sure if this does as well, but for people who've gotten ones that didn't have any of the issues, they seem like they're pretty happy with them. So it's not to say that this will be a bad multimeter at all. So you can get this for about $55. I paid $54.99 for it shipped. It's only 4,000 count display resolution, but like I said, that's kind of 50-50 in this price range, whether it's 4,000 or 6,000. It has a basic DC accuracy of 0.5%. It'll measure resistance of 40 megaohms, capacitance all the way up to 40 millifarad, which is pretty impressive, and frequency to 10 megahertz. And I guess I already mentioned it's IP67 rated. It doesn't have any kind of a holster, but obviously the outside part is a softer material than the black part. But I mean, it's IP67 rated. I'm sure it would survive, a 1 meter drop, no problems. But I'd still like to see a separate rubber holster for these types of things, but that's just me. It's a personal thing. Obviously it wouldn't get the rating if it wouldn't survive a little bit of abuse. So what it came with, I think this one also came in a blister pack, like the clear plastic packaging, because retail packaging, I guess, because you can actually buy this in the US in brick and mortar hardware stores like Home Depot, or was it Lowe's that carries Southwire? I don't remember for sure, but hardware stores sell this in the US. And this one actually came with a very nice carry case. And it came with more than just that. Obviously, it came with the probes. It comes with a booklet-style manual. And it's in at least 2 languages. But it's got diagrams on how to use it and how to take measurements. And it's all in really good English because it's an American brand. And so the manual, I'd say, is pretty good. Pretty good. And really, the manual doesn't matter for a lot of people, but, sometimes if you're looking up how to do a power on sequence or something and it's not printed on the back of the manual or on the back of the meter, it's good to look it up. But really, the manual is more for beginners getting their first multimeter, just trying to figure out how to take correct measurements with it and stuff. It's nice when they include a nice manual that has little diagrams showing you how to take your measurements with the different ranges, so very nice manual. Comes with a K-type thermocouple adapter, which I like because you could replace this with a better quality one as long as it's got the standard connector type for K-type thermocouples. And then you just plug that in and you're good to go for temperature measurements. But they did include one. Now, the quality of the ones they include with most multimeters usually aren't super great, and the temperatures vary greatly between each one. You can line them all up, plug them all in, and no two will probably read the exact same temperature. But they included it in its adapter type, so big thumbs up for that. Being IP67 rated, they also included 2 water/dust proof plugs that you can put into the 2 jacks that you're not currently using, so that's actually pretty cool. Never seen that before. And last but not least, it comes with a magnetic hanger. So here is the magnet part, and then it's just a Velcro strap. And then on the back of the unit, up here, you can put your Velcro through it. So that is pretty good. Pretty good. Because like I said, with a lot of other companies, getting a magnetic hanging kit could be an extra $30 premium. So when when a company goes ahead and includes it out of the box, that's awesome, especially when they include this also. And some companies don't even include this, so yeah, as far as what you get for the money, it's really good. Now, that being said, I bought this on, Amazon or eBay, I don't remember which. So I was able to get it for $55, but I would imagine if you bought this at like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or Ace Hardware, it would probably cost you, I wouldn't be surprised if it was over $100, maybe $120, something like that. I should have looked it up, but that's not to stop you from just getting on Google and looking it up yourself. But yeah, but it's one of those things where if you live in the US, just get on Amazon or eBay and put in the model number and make sure you check the little checkbox for brand new, and then there you go. And I think this was eBay. I don't remember for sure. I definitely wasn't going to include it if I couldn't get it for around $50. So obviously, if you live in a different country and your country's version of eBay doesn't have, or well, I guess you could still shop the US one if they're willing to ship international. But if you aren't able to find it for the same price, or import taxes or VAT kicks the price up, obviously. Some of the multimeters included in the $50 shootout aren't going to be the greatest deal, so yeah, you just got to take that into account. Okay, let's talk about physical construction. So this is very similar to some of the X-Tech models because they have the same OEM. So the chassis is very, very identical, and even the battery compartment and the kickstand, you'll notice it's pretty much the same. I believe circuit test is also the same. Let me check. It's similar, but it's not the same. But X-Tech has some. They'll look almost identical to this if you just picture the orange color instead of the orange and green instead of the brown and the black. But yeah, it feels super solid. No flexing, no creaking, no twisting, no cracks or creaks of any kind. Feels excellent. And then it's a pretty soft feeling rubber on the outside for being one that's molded into the actual chassis, so it's not too bad. It's really more for grip than it is for protection, but as long as the material is sufficiently thick and well reinforced, I don't think that you'd really have to worry about it. So as far as just feel, it feels great, and I actually like the color scheme. The black and the brown I think looks pretty sharp, and it's actually pretty small. It's on height wise, it's not super short, but I'd say it's smaller than an average multimeter by quite a bit, and then it tapers down, so the bottom's pretty narrow. Problem with a lot of these, the bottom is narrow and rounded, so they're not very stable when they're on their kickstand, but this one, I'm not sure, we'll find out in a second. Kickstand's actually pretty easy to get out. There's some that have this style that's just really hard to get out. This one is very easy to get out. It doesn't take any force. And it feels pretty sturdy. I mean, obviously if you put enough force in anything, you can break it, but it feels pretty sturdy. Yeah, it's stable enough, but narrow base, and this is as far back as a kickstand goes, so it's very upright, which I like. I personally like them to be a little more upright because it takes up less space on the bench top. Bench space is always precious, right? So you get a little bit of the wobbling. It's like if you saw the review for the Amprobe AM530, you'd see that one is just rock solid stable. This one, it wobbles a little bit. The bottom is rounded and it's really narrow, and it's really upright, so it's got a high center of gravity. But that's it's not bad though. It's totally usable, and for the most part, you can push buttons. I mean, the more you push them, the more it starts sliding back. But it's not like a couple button pushes would knock it over. So yeah, I have absolutely no problems with that. And of course, probes are very important because that's what you take your measurements with. So here are the tips. They are decently sharp, but not, they're not needle point, but they're pretty sharp. I'd say they're maybe a little above average. As far as feel, they're slightly plasticky, but it's a little higher quality, kind of like the BK ones. I'd say these are a little above average for multimeters in the $50 range. Now, obviously, these aren't going to compare to the really high-end Fluke or Agilent ones or Bryman or any of the other bigger companies, but for a $50 multimeter, well, these retail for probably closer to $100, but for ones you can get for about $50, these are pretty good probes. They feel pretty good. Finger guard, mediocre. Very good strain relief. It's not silicone, but due to the, well, I guess, yeah, these seem a little thinner than average. They have proper ratings and branding on them. And they look nice too. They look better than just the solid color cheapos that you get with some of the Chinese ones. And they have a slightly softer plastic on the end, and you see some ridges on here, probably to get a more solid connection, because it's supposed to be IP67 rated. And I'm sure on the inside there's probably more waterproofing and sealing also. And these also have pretty good strain relief, so yeah, not bad at all. As far as probes go, I'd say the probes are a little above average. Okay, so not super important, but a lot of people like a good quality range switch. It's okay. It's kind of, being the same OEM as X-Tech, it feels very similar. It's kind of, I mean, it gets the job done, and I'm sure 99.9% of the time it would never be a problem. But if we're just talking straight up feel, it doesn't feel as good as a lot of the other ones. It feels a little vague, I guess. It'd be really easy to get it stuck between ranges, where with some multimeters it's almost impossible to get it between ranges. Now, normal use, you switch it to what you need and it stays put, snaps right into each range. You really don't ever have to. Yeah, I mean, it's you almost have to try to get it stuck between ranges. So when I say that, it's really not that big of a deal. This is just describing the feel of it. Some people like good feel with their products to make them feel like they got their money's worth. So this one isn't terrible. I've felt much worse. The circuit test just takes the cake as far as being the most horrible range switch. This one is okay, but it's kind of like the X-Techs. It's a little on the vague and light side, but it's not terrible. It's just, it needs to be a little more notchy and have a little stronger tension pulling it into each range, I think. But it's such a minor thing, that's not even a big deal at all to me personally. Guess we could talk capabilities. So it's one of the weird ones where the off is in the middle of the range. So over to one side, which I like that though, that's good, because if you're a technician and either you're measuring voltages all day or you're measuring current all day, you might just be like one click over to whatever range you need, so you don't have to start over here and click all the way through the range to measure current, you know. So it's not a terrible design. Some people don't consider why they did that, and so when you consider the fact that it gets you to whatever range you need without having to wear out all the detents, it's actually not a bad idea. That being said, you can't ram it into an end stop on one end or the other to turn it off, so you have to be a little more conscious of that. But that's also a minor, you know, one of those first world problem type of things. It's not even a big deal at all. But yeah, so current AC and DC on this side, and use mode to select between AC or DC. Volts, AC and DC, it's shared just like the current is, which I don't like, but you just hit the button to switch between the two. Let's see what it defaults to. So this one defaults to DC, and then if you hit mode, it switches to AC. Frequency measurement, and looks like resistance, continuity, and diode, and then you probably use mode to switch between them. Capacitance, and then again another one with temperature, Fahrenheit and Celsius in two different ranges, which is interesting. And then you have obviously the mode button that switches between the secondary functions for each range, and then you have hold. I believe this is the crappy type that just freezes the reading on the display. And manual ranging button, min-max modes, which I hate how it works on most multimeters out there, so let's see how it works on this one. So this would be the current live maximum. So if we touched it to something, there you go, you can see it changing live. The current minimum. Let's see, this is one that works brilliantly, and I think this might actually be the one I compared in the video where I ranted about how min-max doesn't work very well on most multimeters. See how it's blinking right now? That means this is actually what the probes are reading live, and the blinking min-max at the top means that in the background it's reading new highs and lows and storing them into those registers, memory registers, or variables or whatever. So I like that. So then you can switch back and see what the new max is, see what the new min is, or you can go back to reading whatever you're measuring, your power supply rail or whatever, and that's awesome. Multimeters that don't do it this way require you to have a second multimeter to record mins and maxes and see what your voltages are doing while you're taking your measurements. So to me, this is excellent. This gets a huge thumbs up for me for doing it this way instead of the crappy way that all the other multimeters do it. Second thumbs up I'm going to give it is how long the backlight's been on. I put that on, rambled on for over a minute, and the backlight's still on. That is excellent. Most multimeters go for maybe 20 to 30 seconds. The crappy ones will do about 10 seconds. This one's been going on for quite a while now, so I like that. That's how it should be. If you turn a backlight on, you probably are in a dark situation and you need the backlight, so turning off after 10 seconds is just stupid and pointless. And on top of the fact that this backlight goes for a really long time, and it's a pretty even light blue color, I don't see too many hot spots. Maybe a little hotter on this side than it is over on this side, but overall it's pretty even and I wouldn't complain about it. I like the fact that it has a dedicated button. You push it one time and it turns on. Almost looked like I got button bouncing, didn't it? Maybe not, but yeah, dedicated button where you don't have to hold it for 2 seconds to turn it on is excellent. And this one lasts for freaking ever. I don't know what the timeout is, but it is much longer than all the other ones that I've seen where they shut off after like 20 seconds. So, and obviously if you want to stop recording mins and maxes, and it looks like the display rate might be slower while it's doing the min and max reading in the background, but to me that doesn't matter. It's a worthy sacrifice. You're able to actually see your supply voltage or whatever you're measuring while it's reading mins and maxes. And obviously if you want to exit out, you hold the min max button and then it clears out of there, and I'm guessing it wipes out the stored values for the min and the max. But that is awesome. That is how it should be. But yeah, it's got a pretty good amount of functionality. It's awesome. It's IP67. It's just sucks. It's got a lot going for it. It just doesn't have a relative function, and that would be a lot more handy than the stupid hold function, or even, well, actually the min max on this one works really well, so I'd probably prefer that. But there's no relative feature, so that to me is a big thumbs down. But as with all multimeters, every multimeter has good things about it, bad things about it. So that's kind of one of the bad things. It doesn't have relative mode. Okay, so let's look at the display. The display honestly is not that bad. It's the really thick digits that I personally dislike a lot, and I think the circuit test was another that was like this. But that being said, it's got really good contrast, and the display is actually pretty big considering how small the entire multimeter is, and it's got a really good backlight that has a dedicated button, and it lasts for a long time before it shuts itself off, if it even shuts itself off. So I really like that a lot. And it does appear to have auto power off, because I see a little, like a clock symbol in the corner. So I imagine if we hold, not that button, not that button, there we go. So if you hold the range button, when you turn the device on, it disables auto power off. So I like that it includes auto power off, and I especially like that they give you a way to disable it or override it. And I forgot to mention, this one does have a bar graph, and the display update rate doesn't seem to be super quick, but you can tell that the bar graph is jumping up and down, so it's much faster. So it's kind of the reason why they include bar graphs on a lot of these modern meters, because they can make that give you a better visual representation of how something's fluctuating versus just seeing the digits updating twice a second, So I do like when they include it, but it's not always completely handy to a lot of people, but it's good for seeing visual movement, kind of like with an old analog meter. You can actually see how quickly the needle's swaying around and give you a good feel for what's going on. And also, you can also see when you're about to jump into the next range. So yeah, I don't mind bar graphs being on there. I think it's cool. Okay, let's take a look at the battery and fuse situation. And it is UL listed, which is awesome. Oh, okay, so I lied. The kickstand is not a part of the battery door. But there are 2 screws, and they are machine screws, so another thumbs up to that. You can see the metal inserts molded into the case. The Dave Jones favorite, golden power. And no fuse access, but at least you can access the battery without taking a holster off, using nice machine screws, so it's not terrible. but opening the thing up to get to the fuses, that's pretty annoying. But since we already have it apart, we will go ahead and open it. Oh, very interesting. Oh, I guess without the battery door on, you can squeeze these in to pull the kickstand off. But yeah, like I said, it's already part way apart, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it the rest of the way apart so we can see what's going on inside this thing. So okay, so I got all the screws out, and as you can see, they have a big, thick, like metal bushing, which I mean is acting more like a washer, I think, and then a really pathetic rubber gasket type of thing, like a rubber washer, and they're very, very torn up. And the only reason why I have a problem with that is because, for one, these are self-tapping screws. Two, you don't have access to the fuses without taking all 6 of these screws out. So each time you open the unit up to replace a fuse, you're going to wear out the, let me see if I can find one that's in worse condition. You're basically going to wear out the gasket. They're just very, very crappy quality. I'm sure brand new they were fine, but as soon as you remove it once and put it back on, it really tears them up due to the friction. But most people who buy this will probably just set it on their bench, and it probably won't be that big of a deal. But it's worth mentioning. Now, I forgot to mention earlier, this actually uses solid battery terminals, and I love that. That is so much better than crappy battery snaps, so they get an extra thumbs up for that. Fits very snugly together. So it's got a decent channel on the bottom half, or no, the top half that goes between 2 channels and on the other side, and between the tight fit and also the the screw holes, or screw poles, I don't know what you call those, they're like screw pistons that go into screw cylinders on this side of the case. It really makes this thing super rigid. So really good on them for designing this well. But granted, this is an OEM that designed it for them, so I don't really think that Southwire had anything to do with designing this. And no shielding on the back, which is a little disheartening, but not too big of a deal. So right off the bat, name brand 1000 volt HRC fuse, and then another name brand. My only question is the voltage rating of this one. 1000 volt. Excellent. Both 1000 volt, both high rupture capacity ceramic fuses, so that's freaking awesome. So we have a varistor, a mauve metal oxide one, and PTC. I'm verifying everything out because I sit so far from whatever I'm recording because the camera and mic's between me. People have gotten on to me about calling some mauves PTCs, so I'm making sure I check the silk screen now. It's got a pretty decent looking 10 amp current shunt. The input jacks are excellent. You can tell they're the solid tube type because solid tube type always has either nuts or screws on the ends. And so, yep, those are solid. These through-hole resistors are a little kind of not the tidiest, but I'm sure it's fine. It's just a little, I would expect better than that. Really, really huge trace that goes up to, looks like where the top end of this fuse is, and they have a ton of solder blobbed on top of it for extra current handling. And then there's this little afterthought wire that goes all the way up to here on a little part of the board that has isolation slots cut around it, which is good. So the wire itself has insulation, but then they put this over it as like an extra means of barrier. So at least they went through the trouble of doing that. It's kind of crappy to see that that was an okay part of their design to run that across the board. But that being said, they did it right, and at least they give it extra insulation against fraying and shorting out and stuff. So that's actually not terrible, and they could be worse. And it's awesome that they use properly rated HRC fuses. The fuse holders have tabs on the ends, so vibration can't cause the fuses to slide out either end, because not all of them do that. And the solder quality on everything actually looks pretty good. Component choices and component alignment on their pads, everything looks very tidy. You got your main ASIC, speaker, crystal, a couple of through-hole caps, but besides that, everything else is good old analog SMD stuff. I do see a lot of trim pots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At least 7 trim pots that I can see right off the bat. And these are the two pads where the battery terminals connect from the back side of the case. I'm guessing this is the input diode bridge. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to see. I guess I could try to give you a nice clear shot before I pull the board out. Okay, so just to see what's going on the other side, because, well, it's worth looking, I'm going to go ahead and pull the board out and we'll take a peek. Okay, so I got all the screws out. There were a whole bunch of them, 2, 4, 6, 7. I think that's all of them. And one of them I had to remove the bigger fuse to get to. I think I got all of them. You got to be really careful when it's got little trim pots. If you're not sitting really close to the multimeter, so you can't look carefully from a distance, it's really easy to confuse those with these screws, especially since these are the really tiny screws. And that would be a pretty bad feeling to go to take one of these apart and then realize you just turned a trim pot. So if anyone's done that, please post in the comments and let me know. I'm really curious. Surely someone out there's done that, because it wouldn't be very hard to do. You know, I don't know if I ever pulled this one out, and I think I'm gonna have to remove these nuts to get the board up. I'm just gonna give it a light tug and see. Yeah. So I don't remember ever taking the board out of this one. I might have. My memory's not the greatest, as you know if you've seen any number of my videos, but... Okay, so we got the nuts off, and they had lock washers underneath them, so now I'm gonna pull up. Yeah, I think that did the trick. It's just a little... it's another thing to always check for, is make sure there aren't tabs in the chassis that hold the board on. It doesn't appear to be the case with this, but you just want to be careful so you don't break your meter. Obviously I bought this just for the purpose of reviewing, so I wouldn't be too devastated if this broke, but I would like it to survive so we can watch it get destroyed on Joe Q. Smith's machine of destruction. Ew. Well, I'm gonna have to straighten those out with some pliers to get that back on, but it's out. And yeah, I don't think I remember this, because that's actually kind of cool how... Oh, I wonder if... Yeah, that feels very soft and rubbery, so that's probably... I'm guessing they had to have this board back here to sandwich the rubber button assembly against the front of the chassis to make it watertight, since this is IP67 rated, so that's a very good design. Pretty ordinary looking range switch on the back side. There's a better shot of the solid tube type input jacks that are basically molded into the chassis, so definitely a great design there, and really nothing exciting to see up at the top. So, here's the... Wow! Hell yeah! So, not only is there a MOV and PTC on the top of the board, another MOV on the bottom, as well as 2 more PTCs. So, that's very good. I'm actually really happy about that. And here's a better shot of that isolation slot that we saw on the bottom side where the connecting wire went across the board. Oh, okay, so as with a lot of the other ones, it looks like 4 of the screws I pulled out actually didn't need to be pulled out for me to pull the board, the PCB out of the chassis, because it looks like those were used to hold the plastic LCD assembly on. Now, I don't know why it's not... Oh, looks like it's force fit. I know the backlights are soldered directly to the board, so I won't be able to pull that off, but Yeah, looks, I don't want to hurt it. It looks like the polarizer sheet was actually coming up. But, well, actually, yeah, I don't, it looks like the LEDs are built into the diffuser unit and the LEDs are soldered directly to the board. So while the top LCD part I could possibly lift off, it's kind of stuck to the zebra strip a little bit. The actual diffuser underneath it I wouldn't be able to get out without desoldering it, and I don't know if I can be bothered, but if you look underneath there, I see a couple like 8-pin devices under there, but all the processing can be done on this side of the board, so I really don't know what that is. Just some more analog stuff, I'm guessing. But it's not a terrible design. But I guess I should give you a nice clean view of the front now that it's all the way out. Well, I should probably do it this way. And by the way, I'm trying to give you a really good view of all of these very close up, you know, with it in focus, good lighting. If for some reason these don't suffice and somebody has like a specific request with any one of these multimeters, assuming I haven't mailed it off to Joe Q. Smith yet to get destroyed, just shoot me a message and I will take it back apart and get whatever picture that you're wanting and I will upload it. So yeah, just let me know if you have any specific requests. But I imagine these should be good enough. I mean, 1080p this close up. I mean, I'm just using a smartphone to record everything on my channel, so it's not like I have a macro lens on here or anything. This is just the smartphone. Just pretty good capability of getting nice focus up close. But yeah, just let me know. But overall, I think it looks good. Now, whether that'll translate to it being safe or not, I don't know. But it is UL listed, and it is Southwire is a brand that makes stuff for electricians, so I imagine that they're pretty confident in its reliability and safety. And it's got a pretty good amount of input protection too. So, and both fuses are 1000 volt and the good HRC ones. So all in all, I would imagine this is probably a pretty safe one. And it's IP67, so it's got a lot going for it. I just wish I had relative mode, or relative functionality. But I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble it and we'll do some measurements with it. Okay, so I got the manual out and it's for the 4 volt and higher range, it's 1% plus 3. So this is within spec, but not by a whole lot. It's getting close to the edge. 4.4 or 4.94 would be the ragged edge of the spec, but it was worth checking because this is probably the most far out of all of the ones that I've looked at so far. So a little disappointing, but it's within their advertised spec, so it's not like you're getting ripped off. All right, let's do continuity test. So it's not getting a super clean connection with these stock probes. You can hear it being kind of intermittent. I think 50 ohms is their threshold. It's a pretty low one, which could be why it's really scratchy. I mean, it's obviously not a latching type. And it's not very loud. I don't know if you can tell through the video, but when it gets a good clean connection, it seems to be pretty quick. So I'd say continuity test is not bad. Okay, let's test the auto ranging speed of resistance mode. That's very quick. Very, very quick. Well above average, so that is excellent. So let's see what the screen update rate is. So you can see as I vary how tightly I squeeze the probe tips, you can see the bar graph moving. And basically just tight, loose, and you can see it jumping up and down. The actual display update rate's pretty slow though. But with a lot of these meters, the update rate in the different ranges will be different. So for voltage, for all we know, that might actually be fine. But as far as resistance goes, that's pretty slow. But speed isn't everything. Let's see if it's able to do an accurate measurement. Here's 1K precision. Yep. 10K. 100K. Yeah, everything is reading a hair low. I'm wondering if I just, when I pull the board out, if I brushed a trim pot, or just a tiny bit of flex on the PCB after pulling it out, screwed it up. Because it's not unlikely that you could throw something out of spec by taking it apart. It's definitely within the realms of possibility. So I'd have to go back and see how it did on measurements in the actual shootout and see if it's actually changed at all. Oh, okay, that was just a beeping from switch. It beeps every time you switch ranges. It's a little annoying, but I was kind of checking to see if it had input jack detection, but apparently not. So let's do 1 milliamp precision measurement. Yeah, everything on this thing's reading low. Granted, if you knew that, you could compensate for it in your head, but it's a little annoying that everything is reading low. Everything is reading low, but either way, that's pretty close, and I'm sure for a current measurement, that's well within spec. But yeah, it's a little interesting that everything on this thing has been reading low so far, consistently. Okay, so we're going to do diode check, and obviously all multimeters are capable of checking diodes, but do they have a high enough voltage and current to light up an LED to test an LED with? Oops, good up if I got polarity right. So yeah, I don't know how well you can see that. So it does light it up, but it's not showing a voltage on the screen. But I would bet if we have just a red LED, it probably will do both. Yep, shows voltage on the screen and it lights it up, so very good. So this one is a bananas, very bananas crazy capacitance range, but let's start at the very low end. Will it measure into the picofarad range? No. Most meters can do 100 nanofarad, but that's kind of the bottom end of what they can usually do. Yep. Okay, 1000 microfarad. It wants me to discharge it. And the little decimal point's moving around, showing me that it's, and look, the bar graph's moving. So it's giving me some indication that it's doing something. I like that. So that measured it correctly. It looks like it's still readjusting it as we sit here. I mean, this will measure up to, what was it? 40 millifarad, so yeah, 4700 should be well within what it's able to. Sorry, it wanted me to discharge it. Okay, I got this 4700 electrolytic. And even if it takes a while, I like that it does something on the screen, so you know that it's measuring. I like that. Close. Let's see if it settles up closer to the actual. I think 4.5 is what this one actually is. 4.5 millifarad. Yeah, it's slowly creeping up. That's close-ish, but capacitance measurement on multimeters is usually the most inaccurate measurement range out of anything, usually. So that's not too surprising. Okay, it'll supposedly measure current, or sorry, not current, it'll measure frequency to 10 megahertz. So I say we just crank it straight up to 10 and see what happens. There we go, 10 megahertz, and it's actually measuring it right on the money, so that's awesome. Just for shits and grins, let's set it to 20 and see what happens. Nope. Let me turn the voltage up just a hair, peak to peak, and see if it'll pick it up. Nice. 20 megahertz. I just turned the peak to peak voltage up to 20 volts, and it's Probably more than enough. I was going to set the 10, but I accidentally hit the 2. Let's see if it'll do 30. Nope. So it looks like it'll do 20 if the amplitude is high enough. If not, it'll easily do the 10 megahertz that they advertise, so that's pretty good. And I don't see... Let me set to 60, and we'll see if it's got duty cycle capability. No, can't do duty cycle, but usually if it can, it'll have a percent sign next to the hertz label. So yeah, at least it'll do the frequency to 10 megahertz. That's actually a pretty good range. A lot of the multimeters out there won't even do 1 megahertz, so that's pretty good. Okay, well, we've done some basic measurements with it, and it seems to work fine, other than everything reading slightly low. That could be for me taking it apart, though, so, and due to the fact that it's still within its rated specs, I'm not going to really complain about it. But I think it's time to pull the battery out, hook it up to my bench power supply, and see how it behaves when we turn the voltage down. Okay, so I have it hooked up to my bench power supply, which is set to 9 volts. To basically simulate the 9-volt battery this would have in it, and I have it set to voltage range, and I have it connected to my 10-volt reference, and again, this is reading low, and just for reference, I'm going to hook my Fluke up to it. Fluke is reading 10.00. And in its, what's Fluke's higher res count mode? 20,000, I think? It's unusually reading 9.996, but yeah. The Southwire is definitely reading low. So, I checked again, this is still within spec. It could go to 9.89 or something like that. So, it's within spec, but again, reading low, just pointing that out. I don't know if it's really that big of a deal. I'm just going to start going down 100 millivolts at a time, and we'll see if a battery indicator comes on or if the voltage reading fluctuates. So this will be more of a relative thing. So 9.93 is obviously what it thinks the voltage is. As it goes down, it should not move. If it does, something is wrong. There's 8.5. There's 8 volts even. 7.3. 7 even. And it hasn't moved at all, which is what you would expect. Or, well, it's what you would want. We're down to 6.2. There's 6 volts even. I'm going up. Okay, so I'm back up to 7. 6.9. It could have some like rolling average or some kind of smoothing on the battery voltage to keep the battery light from oscillating. So I'm at 6.6, 6.5, 6.4, 6.3, 6.2, 6.1, 6 even, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5.6. The low battery light comes on, but the reading is still dead steady and solid. Okay, so I'm at 5 volts. I just want to make sure that it'll turn back on even at 5 volts. Four, 5, 4.4, 4.2. So now we're down to 4 volts. Okay, down to 4 and it's still turning back on. Okay, now we're at 3 volts even. Still turns on just fine. 2.6. It's 2.5. So now it's reading a hair low. Just it's off by 10 millivolts. That's a little bizarre and not great, but oh, now it's back. We're down to 2 volts even, and it's still going. So I'd just prefer for it to shut off at like 3 or 4 volts, because then you know for sure that you're not going to get weird readings like this. So yeah, so at 1.5 it completely shut off. 1.6 I doubt it'll turn back on. Okay, so 2.1 volts looks like the lowest you can go to where you could still turn it back on, so we'll use that. Okay, so now I'm going to run this through another multimeter so we can measure its current draw. Okay, so I have this powered through my bench power supply still, and I turn the bench power supply right back up to an even 9 volts to basically simulate a fresh 9 volt battery. I have the Voltcraft, well I have this plugged through the Voltcraft in current measuring mode so we can see what the current draw is. It looks like it is drawing 2.2 milliamps, which is pretty good. Okay, so I just read the manual and it says auto power off is 30 minutes on this one. That sucks. So I'm gonna just leave it here and let it auto power off, and then we'll see what its sleep state current draw is. Alright, so the unit has powered itself off after a very long 30 minutes, which is fine. I mean, considering how long these things usually go on a fresh set of batteries, it's not really a big deal that it takes that long for it to power off. And some people might find the shorter auto power offs, like 10-minute ones, to be annoying, so not a bad thing. And anyway, it's drawing 74 microamps in its sleep state, which is not bad. A lot of them seem to be a lot lower than that, but honestly, that's not a big deal, because probably not often you'll forget to turn it off. I mean, it'll happen time to time, but majority of the time you'll eventually come across it within a day or so and switch it back to off, so it's not that big of a deal. I went ahead and pulled up some 9 volt battery data sheets and got a good guesstimation of what the battery life should be on a fresh 9 volt battery, and it'll get just about 300 hours. Now if you got one of the Energizer Advanced Lithiums, on one of those it would probably go a lot longer than that, 350, maybe 400 hours, but almost 300 hours is pretty good for a 9 volt battery, so it's not terrible. But now that we've covered all that, I think I'm going to go ahead and put all this stuff up, and then we will do a summary. Alright, so the Southwire 12070T, I wish I'd come up with a better product name than that, but whatever. All in all, I think it's a pretty good meter. It's, you know, just above $50. I got it for $55 now. Whether you can get it for that price or not depends. I checked today and I was still able to see a bunch that were right around this price. But if you don't live in the United States, that might be a different case for you. So obviously, you know, take that into consideration. But if you live in the US, you should be able to get this on Amazon or eBay or wherever for around $55. And being IP67 rated, if that's important to you, that's I'd say this is a pretty good choice. Display's pretty decent. Its measurement capabilities aren't too terribly bad. Everything on this specific one was reading a little bit low, but maybe I just got a dud. It could be from me taking it apart 3 times. The stock probes are pretty decent for, well, all things considered. It came with a carry case, it came with a K-type thermocouple, and it's the adapter type, so you can plug in whatever thermocouple you want with the appropriate connector. The only major downside I can think of, the display update rate's a little bit slow in most ranges, and the multimeter doesn't have a relative function. That's probably the single biggest thing I could say bad about this unit. Relative is kind of a big one to have, but it's not necessarily something that you absolutely have to have, but it is definitely very handy and can help you make much more accurate resistance and capacitance measurements, and it's useful for other stuff too. So yeah, the fact that they didn't include that's a little bizarre, but it does have a really awesome backlight that lasts for a really long time. In fact, I don't even know if it shuts itself off. I left it on while I rambled earlier and it never turned off, so for all we know, maybe it's a good one that will only turn off unless you tell it to turn off, which is awesome in my opinion, because if you turn it on you probably need it. Min-max on this unit also works brilliantly. This is how I wish it worked on all multimeters. So thumbs up to Southwire or CEM or whoever's responsible for that awesome design. It's very handy. And the peak detect mode I think could be handy for certain situations, like if you're building a power supply and you're just, well, I mean, oscilloscope would be more handy for measuring the ripple in your power supply output, but if you didn't have an oscilloscope, this could potentially be handy because it'll measure spikes up as quick as 1 millisecond. So for detecting peaks in either direction, positive or negative, I think it could be pretty handy. It does have manual ranging if you decide to switch a range manually. Holds the not very handy type. I wish they would have replaced that with a relative function. That would have been nice. Range switch is okay. all in all, though, I think it's pretty good value. It's a name brand. It's UL listed. It has really good input protection from what I could see. Now, if that actually translates into something that's super safe, that's yet to be known, but I'm going to mail all these to Joe Q. Smith, I believe his name is, on EV blog forums, and he is going to torture test these with his discharge device. So we'll find out. I imagine a lot of these are going to die. But yeah, look and feel, everything about this meter I really like. I can't think of too many things that I don't like. Now, taking it apart, that's one thing I'll say. Being IP67 rated, it's got 6 really, really heavy duty, really long, I don't know about heavy duty, but they're really long screws with a lot of thread on them, and it takes a long time to screw and unscrew all of them. And that, it wore my wrist out just trying to get those things out and then back in. And so to think that on a job site, if you blow a fuse, you would have to do that just to get to the fuses, that's a little annoying. So that's a minor point deduction right there, I would say. But at least you can get to the battery. You can get to the battery with just 2 machine screws, so that's good. And instead of using a crappy battery snap, 9-volt battery snap, it uses proper battery terminals. So really, this does have a lot of good stuff going for it. It's just a couple minor little things. No relative mode. You have to take 6 really crazy screws out to get to the fuses. Auto ranging's a little on the slow side, and that's about it. Everything else is pretty good. Battery life is, you know, kind of middle of the road, not great, not terrible. The ratings are good. Yeah, I don't think I can really say much else about it without going in circles. So hopefully this was helpful to anyone in the market for a multimeter. I imagine if you don't live in the United States, this might not be the best choice for you, because I think being a domestic company, they might not sell this anywhere outside of the States. And if that's the case, obviously by the time you pay for express shipping and VAT and all kinds of other taxes and such, it might not be that good of a value at that point. But if you live in the States, I think this is a pretty decent meter, and I definitely wouldn't give you a hard time if you picked this one over a lot of the other ones. That being said, if you're just doing bench work and you need lots of fancy features and good accuracy and all kinds of stuff, the Uni-T is probably still better as far as just specs and stuff on paper. But it's not IP67 rated, it's not backed by an American brand where you could, you know, get warranty work done through them. In fact, let me see what the warranty is. It's probably something I should cover on these, but I don't know if it'll say anything about warranty. Limited warranty and limitation liability. It says, Southwire Company warrants this product to be free from defects in material and workmanship for 2 years from the date of purchase. This warranty does not cover fuses, disposable batteries, or damage arising from an accident, neglect, misapplication, contamination, modification, improper maintenance or repair, operation outside of specifications, or abnormal handling of the product. So, it sounds like, assuming you didn't break it from being dumb, they'll cover it for 2 years. So that's pretty good. At least it's got a warranty. But the thing is, I think that probably only, yeah, they're based in Georgia. At least their warranty center's based in Georgia, Villa Rica, Georgia. So yeah, if you don't live in the U.S., it might make the warranty not worth it, because by the time you pay for shipping for it to go to Georgia, you know, that's getting close to the $55 cost of the entire meter itself. So if you're in the US, 2-year warranty, that's not too bad. So that would give you a big benefit over buying the Uni-T UT61E, for example. On paper, it does seem a lot better than this meter, but it's not IP67 rated, and it doesn't have an American company backing it. So if you have warranty work, it's like, you know, you gotta try to contact Uni-T, who's based out of China, and who knows how long you'll be out of a multimeter while they're in the process of trying to replace it. And that's assuming they even have a warranty. I didn't actually check, so I should probably look that up and see. That could be a big deciding factor for some people in getting a meters. You know, if you spend the money on it, is the company going to stand by the product, or are you just going to be SOL? So, yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. Good meter, IP67, it's rugged. Everything we measured was within spec, albeit everything was reading a hair low. Backlight's excellent. This entire time I've been doing the summary, it's been on and it hasn't shut itself off. So I wish all multimeter backlights worked like this. That would be incredible, and had a dedicated button. But yeah, there's pros and cons to every meter, and I gave you all the pros and cons of this one, so it's up to you to decide if this meets your criteria, and if it does, I think it'd be a pretty good multimeter to have on your bench. So yeah, I will see you all in the next video. Bye.